There we go. All set. Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Land Use and Building Management Committee meeting of May 1st, Wednesday, May 1st. I would like to call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is roll call. Tonight we have with us council members Heather Dunn, Greg Burnett, Jim Freyer, and myself, Barbara Smith. We may see Dwan Wiggins join us. The others are not able to make it tonight. First item on the agenda is next item rather is public participation. Is there anyone who is here that would like to speak? Please raise your hand. Okay, no one is here for public participation, so I will close public participation and move on to the minutes of the previous meeting of April 3rd. Do I have a motion, please? Mr. Burnett, thank you very much. Are there any corrections, deletions, changes of any sort? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you. Okay, moving on to old business, item A, review schools hazardous materials remediation strategy plan. This was something we talked about at our last meeting regarding the remediation of the asbestos. And so my understanding is, we're just going to keep this on the agenda under old business, and we'll be getting an update and a presentation from Bill Hodel from Norwalk Public Schools in the August meeting. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. So I did not ask. I told Bill that this is on the agenda. He's aware of it, but I didn't ask him to attend, anticipating that as we go through the summer, let him get through the summer, and then come back in around August to provide the committee with a full report. So this will just basically keep track of it, so Alan Lowe doesn't forget.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
I don't think Mr. Burnett would let you forget. Okay. All right. So then we'll look forward to that in August and move on to new business. Item A, review unit price bids for South Norwalk school materials testing and field inspection services and refer the following to the Common Council for action. Authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to Connecticut Materials Testing Laboratory, Inc. for material testing and field inspection services for the South Norwalk Elementary School for a total not to exceed $104,665 plus a contingency allowance of $30,000 to cover actual testing and inspection services performed. Funds are available and account number noted. Will someone move that, please? Ms. Dunn, thank you very much. Okay. Alan, I'm going to turn that.
Sure. Let me just say first, since we're a small group here, I think Jim kind of scared Mike Firenze last time, so he's afraid to show up this time. That's not the reason. Mike Firenze was involved in the Cranberry School project, but Norwalk High School, South North School, Dan Phillip is the project manager for those projects. That's why Dan is here to talk about this. It's very similar to the long conversation we had the other time, in terms of the issues and stuff like that. And Dan is fully aware of the situation at Cranberry because he had talked to Mike about quite a bit about it. And also, this continued evolution of how we determine costs for special testing and inspection. So Dan, if you can send the what's in front of us.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick rundown of the bids that we got for the materials testing and special inspections. For South Norwalk, we went out to bid in early April. It's a unit cost bid, so it's we establish a value, we issue a PO for that value, and then it's billed as services are performed. We track those hours in detail on the different tests that are performed. For this South Norwalk bid, we received 5 bids, 4 of which the purchasing department determined were compliant. We then took those bids, the unit rates that they provided, and you probably saw on the backup behind the memo. We took the project schedules and reached out to our construction managers to get feedback on the schedule and how and what we anticipated the frequency of those tests. You'll see on the very right side what the evaluation criteria was to determine those final values. So we went into as much detail as we could with the information we have at this time. Obviously, this type of bid, it's bid as a unit cost because you can't quantify the exact amount at the beginning. It's really just the best estimate with the information available. There's a number of factors, whether that's the efficiency on site, what work is available, everything down to the weather and inspections every day on site. So we put our most detailed estimate together, and with that we had kind of estimated total values based on the unit cost for each contractor, varying from the 104,665 to 130,000 for the highest of the 4 compliant bidders. And based on that, we are recommending Connecticut Materials Testing Laboratories, or CMTL. They are a local Norwalk contractor. They are qualified for the work, and they've worked with us on other projects in the past in the city of Norwalk.
Dan, can I just ask, have they worked with us on any school projects? Just curiously.
I don't know if Alan recalls. I know
Yeah,
they've
not the
done
recent
some.
one. Yeah, but I worked with them before. I don't remember which project. It could be maybe fire station. But the last couple of projects, they were not the contractor. I thought they were Cranberry, turned out they weren't. So I don't think they were at Jefferson either. So I don't know what the last one is, but I know them. I know of them, and I worked with them before. So again, they actually in South Norwalk. So I think all things they should be, and on this bid they were competitive. Other times when they didn't get the job because we just based on the bid number. But being a local company, even for another company to drive half an hour to get here, it only take them 5 minutes. So I think that they should be in position to submit very competitive bids, and which they did on this project.
Great.
And there's just one other thing I want to add is that at the end of the day, it's really the actual expenses. So we're estimating the quantity. The price is determined based on the bid. The quantity, how often, how many, kind of thing. It's all guesstimate at this point. But then what we actually pay is the real actual number. So actual quantity that we required. So it's not like that we underbid it or overbid it kind of thing. It's really come down to it's just actual cost. So all right, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Questions? Mr. Freyer?
Not to get into the long discussion we had the last time, and Dan, I hope you come back next week after this. But is there any way to get the timing? Because I think that when we were having this discussion last time, was that it seemed like the timing was kind of an issue, that when whether it was going to be 5 trucks there or 3 trucks, and the contractor not being aware of the number of trucks that were doing a pour and so on and so forth. Is that something that we can work on, and is that going to be smoother this time?
Yeah, I can't speak to the specific challenges on the other job. I did get a download from Mike, who I work with, about some of the questions, but as far as it does come down to the efficiency on site to a point. And every time we do bid this out, we tighten the requirements of the bid package, whether that's minimum hours on site, travel time, other items, to try to make it as competitive and get the best rates across the board for all of the different inspections. And like Alan touched on before, the local, we exclude all travel and time and mileage and reimbursable expenses to that point. On previous projects, we allowed some of that, and here we're not allowing it. And that, in the end, those are unknown expenses that we can't estimate. So we're trying to narrow it down so that our estimate is more accurate. And these unknown costs don't add up over the course of a project. So we have an hourly rate, and each inspection costs that we've bid out. It's hard to say, and like I've said before, it comes down to the schedule, the weather, everything. There's a lot of variables at the end of the day on how these inspections are performed, and the project gets executed by the construction manager. So we've
But
We
I
took
think
part-
that when we were talking last time was that there's occasion where you've got 5 trucks there and they didn't expect there was gonna be 5 trucks there. And I was always kind of confused as to why they would not know that there are 5 trucks there and only thought there were gonna be 2 trucks there pouring concrete. I mean, are you in contact with them over the phone? Like, it's gonna be a beautiful sunshiny day and you say, hey, wait a minute, we're gonna be able to squeeze in another 2 trucks today. So maybe you better be ready to have 2 people here or 3 people here, whatever the number is. Staff it accordingly because we're gonna have more because it's a good day. Or it's raining today, so we don't think we're gonna pour anything. So just send one guy over.
Yeah, and the hours could, in that case with concrete pours, this inspection company would also be doing the rebar inspection, so they would know what areas are ready for pours.
Yeah,
There might be an early pour and then they prep and the person needs to be there all day as they work their way into another section. They inspect that rebar, they sign off on it, and they have a truck coming very end of the day, coming
Yeah.
down 95, caught in traffic. And unfortunately with the inspector, they're stuck there for a couple more hours because it takes time. I think the estimates we have for the frequency of inspections, we looked at kind of how often we would expect it once they're ramped up, and that doesn't really, we carried that through the full duration of the schedule. There's obviously they're going to be slower and then they're going to peak and then they're going to slow down towards the end with the number of inspections. So we're hoping that through that methodology, we're able to capture what in our estimate, what we believe the cost will be.
and you expect that should even out. It might be more expensive at the beginning, and then when you peak out and then go down the other side of the curve, you even it out because it's cheaper perhaps.
So it's really our best estimate. And that's understanding the recent project where we required additional funding. That's why we've kind of built a contingency in here to not have to come back for approval, and understanding that there are unknowns and that the price may be slightly more than we anticipated.
Okay, but I think the whole gist of this thing is that it's communication between I just want to make sure the communication between the inspection team and the construction team is in place, whether it's phone,
Yep.
Emails, whatever it is, that allowing them to, or giving them the advice that, well, it's raining today and, unforeseen difficulties come up, that you can avoid having them send an inspector and we don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, and something we've built into our requirements for the bid, for example, is if the inspections are canceled or changed before 3 p.m. the previous day, which normally our trades are there from 7 to 3, 7 to 3:30. So we know where we're at the end of the day and we can cancel and make changes to those plans if necessary without incurring a cost. So
Okay.
it's something we continue to expand on and tighten up the requirements for these bids to avoid unknown costs and things that could be avoided.
Okay. Okay, let's see what happens.
We'll find out in another couple of years.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Ms. Dunn?
Question. So I noticed that there was a contingency of 30,000 in this for the South North School. But then the high school, it's 50,000. Why is the percentage of contingency so much higher for this than the high school? Is it just that
I
scale?
think let's wait till we get to the Norwalk High one, because
Yeah.
we haven't moved that yet, and then we can talk about that.
I can speak to the kind of general for the
Okay,
South Norwalk values. I put together my evaluation, Alan and I discussed it, and we took another look back at the recent Cranberry project that went over, and looking at the square footage, the value of what we ended up on there. Being a smaller project, there's We anticipate that it could be a greater difference than what we're expecting in the high school. The high school, when we get to it, can talk to it further, but I believe there's 7 different sections of the building, multiple floors. If there's an inspector there for an inspection, the efficiency is improved. They're there for 8 hours. They're doing inspections for 8 hours straight. There's no downtime. They came, they waited for something, they inspected it. They waited for something else on a small job. The big job, when they show up to inspect rebar, they probably have 3 buildings they need to inspect rebar, and they might be back the next day because it's nonstop work. So there's I think an improved efficiency on a larger job for inspections than on a smaller job is what we kind of anticipated.
There's more variability on this project, which is why.
Yeah, this smaller job, they're prepping and pouring a quadrant of that building, maybe half the lower floor for concrete as an example, whereas the other building, they're prepping and ready to pour 4 different sections in the coming week. So there's more inspections each time they show up that are available.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving on to item B, review unit price bids for Norwalk High School materials, testing and field inspection services, and refer the following to the Common Council for action. Authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to Connecticut Materials Testing Laboratory, Inc. for materials testing and field inspection services for the Norwalk High School for a total not to exceed $510,479.80 plus a contingency allowance of $50,000. Funds are available and account number noted. Will someone move that item, please? Mr. Frayer, thank you very much. Okay, take it away, Dan. I know we've pretty much talked about, the whole process, but and you already addressed some of this.
Yeah.
But
I'll give you the high level summary of it and then open it for questions. So the Norwalk High School bids, this was bid concurrently with the South Norwalk School. There were 6 bids received for this project. Purchasing department determined 4 of those were compliant. We reviewed them and the spreadsheet attached shows the variance. The prices varied from the low bidder, who was $510,000, to the highest bidder at $611,000. And we touched on that the low bidder on this project again is CMTL, the Norwalk contractor, Connecticut Materials Testing Laboratory. They were recommending the value of our estimate, $510,000, and the $50,000 contingency. And what we just touched on was to have a proportional contingency similar to South Norwalk seemed like a bit much based on our estimates and anticipated efficiencies on a larger job. So that's why we settled on a $50,000 contingency.
okay, Mr. Burnett.
Thank you, Chair Smith. My question is about the I'm sure the company bidded on both projects and they would ensure that they have the bandwidth to cover 2 major construction school projects. But I guess I want to raise that question. We're giving, the testing contract to one company to cover basically work that will be going on, I would say probably around the same time frame, or Norwalk High will be a little further out, but still, a lot of activity for one company, 2 major school projects, and want to just raise that and see what thoughts you have related to that.
Yeah, and both projects, as we know, they both started at about basically the exact same time, but evaluating the schedules with South Norwalk being a smaller school, there will be overlap as far as compaction testing for the building footprint and the foundations, and then concrete to a degree. But we do anticipate that with the smaller foundations at the South Norwalk School, smaller project, we'll be through onto our steel inspections. much earlier than the high school. The high school has a larger steel project to fabricate, deliver, begin erection. So I think it's initially there is some overlap, but as we work out of probably the first 6 months of the project, they send different qualified inspectors for different types of tests. So when we're finished with steel, we're probably beginning steel over at the high school. So there's not all inspections, all of the requirements aren't necessarily overlapping. It's at the beginning, getting out ahead of them with the South Norwalk School. It will require more labor though. And they are, they're local, they're interested in both. They're very happy to do both projects. And I think that I don't see an issue with them being able to perform here.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, let us vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on to item C, review request to secure HUD funding for the Norwalk Community Recreation Center at 98 South Main Street and refer the following to the Common Council for action. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute any and all documents for the application, acceptance, and implementation of a grant from HUD Community Project Funding for the proposed Norwalk Community Recreation Center at 98 South Main Street in the amount of $2 million. Will someone move that, please? Mr. Burnett? Thank you very much. Yeah, and so, you know, we approved the sub-grant a few months ago and then received the news from HUD that the grant is going directly to the city of Norwalk. And so we no longer need the sub-grant. And so that's what this is. And Alan, I'll turn it over to you for the specific details.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, as I think we did talk about a little bit about last month, but bottom line is that with the city being I'm sorry, with the city being the grantee, the sub-grant approval was no longer necessary. At the same time, the way the funding set up, the funding approval set up, that the Y is still part of this relationship in terms of implement program side. So there will be a continuation of this relationship with the Y for the operating side. I think they propose to run the eSport program as well as a STEM program in the building, so that will continue. So that the council approved a operating license agreement. Why that would still be in effect? We haven't signed anything yet. We're still negotiating, not really negotiating, just working out the details of, like, you know, common charges and stuff like that. But on the other hand, we do need a new approval for the city to apply and receive grant money from HUD, the $2 million. So that's what's in front of everybody tonight.
Comments or questions? Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you very much. That's unanimous. All right, moving on to D, building management. Number 1, review bids for the Norwalk Concert Hall Terrace Stair Ramp Improvement Project and refer the following to the Common Council for action. A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Titan Enterprises, Inc. for the Norwalk Concert Hall Terrace Stairs and ADA Ramp Improvement Project for a total not to exceed $308,500. Funds are available from account numbers noted. And B, authorize the Office of Building Management to issue change orders on the contract for a total not to exceed $30,850, account number noted. Will someone move that, please? Ms. Dunn, thank you very much. You may recall, actually, I believe this happened in the prior council, so this might be new to Ms. Dunn and Mr. Fryer, you may have been here. We actually did approve a portion of this, for the terrace, and I think the stairs, but something didn't work out with the contractor and it went out to bid again. And this time we have been able to include the ADA improvements. So that's the situation here. And Alan, do you want to just go over that for us?
Yeah, not too much to add. The patio is actually on the other end of the concert hall. near the intersection of Eversley and East Avenue, right at the corner there. We don't use this patio a lot, maybe a few times a year for some special event, and some of when they have a concert or something like that, they use that area. But it's just really falling apart. It's original to 1938 when the building was constructed. And we really haven't done anything. I mean, since we moved into this building back in 1986, 7, we really haven't done anything to it. I attached some pictures to the backup. We went out to bid like 3 times altogether. This is the 4th time. Each time it comes in, the patio itself, the renovation, it's like $200,000. What we did instead of replacing with flagstone, we actually, I believe this bid is actually for concrete, stem concrete, to replicate the style of a flagstone, but at the same time, it's not actually flagstone because it will cost even more money. It is a little, for something we don't use a lot, it's a lot of money to spend, so we're trying to find a way. I mean, if you want to be truly correct, we will use flagstone in the patio, but it's just that it's just not financially responsible to spend that kind of money on something that we don't have. We have some use, but not minimum use, generally speaking. We don't get traffic out there all day long, kind of thing. So we're trying to find a balance. It's a financial responsibility as well as design responsibility to the building. So the patio work is more than just a patio. It's we are going to rebuild the brick veneer, the stair. There's 2, 1, 2, 3. I think it's three stairs. And as you saw some of the pictures, and the next time it comes to see, you can see it. It's just really falling apart. So it's not safe. So we have to rebuild this. This patio and the stairs is probably roughly at $200,000. The handicap ramp that the ADA sites provided $100,000. It's a little more than $100,000, but roughly they're putting $100,000 into it. So total is about $300,000. So the reason why the last bid didn't work out, the contractor, it's not very efficient in terms of getting a contract signed and scheduling this work and stuff like that. So we went to a law department to cancel the contract. It's just the contractor lose credibility with us even before they start the work. So we didn't want to go forward with it. So we rebid it, and then strangely enough, we canceled the contract for the law department. They bid it again. So and they were the low bidder already. So but we rejected the bid because they just not before even start, they were non-performing already. So we go to the second bidder, which is I think it's Titan at a little bit more than $300,000. Thank you.
Okay, any questions or comments, Mr. Burnett?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Smith. I guess, kind of a left field question. I know we don't use that patio often, like you said, Alan, just for special events. So I guess the question is, do we need the patio? Is it a exit in terms of fire? That we have to have that patio as an exit from the concert hall, or is it just nice to have the patio? I'm just trying to understand, if the patio's falling apart since 1930 something.
Yeah.
Do we really need the patio?
That is a very interesting question. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm 80% sure that we do not need it from an egress perspective. We got two stairwell coming up from the both side of the they call it the vomitorium, but it's really the space in the back of the concert hall. So there's egress out, but there's stairs. So I'm not sure we need a ramp for both of these stairs if we don't do this. So. And also, it is the architecture of the building. If we don't fix it, then we got to either demolish it. We just can't leave it alone like that. I don't think it's the proper thing to do either. Demolition cost is not cheap either, right? So, I think keeping the overall style and architecture of the building, I think it's important to not to tear it down. But at the same time, it's hopefully it will give us at least 20 to 30 year life after we do this. So I don't think that even if you don't do it, we're not going to put yellow tape out there and the block up so people don't get on it and stuff like that. So It's just, then if you don't use it and we're gonna abandon it, then we should tear it down. I mean, that will cost you $300,000 to tear it down because it's and what they put back in there, whatever, I don't know what it is. So, and then you do have two doors going, like two sets of double doors that's going out there. So do we board it up? I don't know. So again, there's challenges. It's not so simple. It's just sort of don't use it and leave it alone. It is something that we need to address one way or the other.
Can I just follow up on that? I mean, there are two things that that have come to mind. In terms of an emergency exit from the theater, if there were to be an emergency, I would think the people in the back of the house might be able to get out that way much more quickly than having to, wait and go down the aisle. So I could see it being important for that. But also, I just think historic preservation. It's a pretty important building for the city, and I'd hate to see something like it, be demolished. Ms. Dunn, you had a question? Comment?
To say, so it includes the platform and the stairs as well, which you would have to do anyway, even if you weren't doing the terrace, right? I guess that's my thinking about it. Like, if you go out to use the terrace, the stairs would need, for safety reasons, to be done.
Yeah, there's two sets of stairs, one on the left, one on the right side of the patio terrace kind of thing. There's also another set of stairs. I think at least once, I think on the left-hand side, looking at the concert hall from the outside. I'm not sure there's a set on the right-hand side. There probably is one. I just, for some reason, I don't remember that set. So at least 3 sets of stairs that we need to replace because the flagstone is actually falling out the risers kind of thing. So it's just really not safe to walk through. So we patch it a little bit just so we can maintain it. But those stairs are required for egress. There's no question. There's the 4 sets, at least 2 of them definitely required for egress. So the other 2 off the patio, if you don't use the patio, then there's no egress requirement for for the patio if you don't use it. But at the same time, it's that again, it's not something we can just just abandon and don't do anything with it. It just we have to do something with it.
Okay. Any further comments or Mr. Frere?
Just to probe a little bit more on this, you kind of offhandedly said it's almost cost as much to tear it down as to rebuild it. Is that, is that just a ballpark idea? I would think that it's got to be cheaper to tear it down than spend $300,000 to fix it nicely. And then it's only going to be good for another 20 years anyway.
You know what? Realistic, if you ask me, think about it, I think it would be like $150,000 to tear it down because it's all concrete underneath. You got to excavate it out because it's 4 feet above. You got to remove all that spill, whatever materials in it. So, yeah, it's sort of as much as just a general term. If you have, 150,000 would be probably the first number that I come up with.
Is it worth going back and getting a number on that? We just went through a capital budget where we spent 2.5 hours to move $150,000 around. With that in the back of my mind, should we wait another month and find out how much it would really cost to tear it down and find out what the historical impact would be on an older building? I don't know what the mechanics are. That's a question.
I can't answer that question just up to my head. It's when you remove it, what we have doors there, so we boarded those. Well, first of all, I'm not against it. I'm just thinking about like we got this as Greg was asking about. It's like okay, we got confirm that the egress, we don't require the doors coming out of the into the terrace, but we do stair that on the side. The other 2 stairs, we regardless we have to redo because those are egress stairs. So we're gonna spend, let's say $50,000 for those stairs anyway. And then the door opening and stuff like that, what do we do with them? I guess we can lock the doors, but if somehow we got permit, remove it so you seal it so that people don't walk out by accident because it's about 4 feet above grade. And then once you open it up, it's like I don't know where they're going to be because right now it's about 4 or 5 feet above ground, right? So once you rip the whole thing out, like, is that wall behind, is that brick behind it? Do we have to actually do a whole brick veneer? Because it's buried right now, so we don't know, right? So, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like a building come down, and then we got extension to it, to like a terrace. Once you tear the terrace down, we don't know whether the brick go all the way down. We may have to actually do brick veneer, the whole portion of the existing wall anyway. So I don't know. So it's very hard to figure it all out. And then we probably have to break the foundation down at least 1 foot below grade. We remove all the material. And then the architecture made it a little weird a little bit too, because you got 2 door opening coming out, and we're not going to change the historic architecture of the building. It's kind of strange to have 2 doors, but yet there's nothing in front of it from an aesthetic perspective, kind of. So there is as you say, there is a historic concern that we need to address. And then the cost is not so simple. We got to really figure it out. Once you tear it out, what's behind those walls, we'll never know until we tear it out, because the brick may not go down all the way to the grade level. So now we got to do brickwork. So that's money too, right? So it's very hard. Anyway,
I just have to say, I would not be in favor in any way of tearing the terrace down. I think this is a historic building, and I think that it just wouldn't be the right thing to do. Mr. Burnett.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Smith. I withdraw my question about tearing it down. No, I was just, I was just asking the question just as, a what if scenario, but I do agree with maintaining the historical look of the city hall. And that's important to, the first view of anyone coming to City Hall. When you come off of East Avenue, that's what you see first. The sign is there that says, concert hall. But however, every little penny helps in terms of saving. So my new question is, are we using kind of the, 300,000 sounds kind of like a lot of money for a patio, I mean, have we done some really close evaluations to say, what can we do to get a functional patio that we don't use too often at the cheapest possible price?
We did. That's like I mentioned before, instead of putting flagstone or bluestone back, we actually pouring concrete, and then we're going to do a pattern on it that somewhat repeat the style and the proportion of flagstones, so it looks have that look to it. Otherwise, we'd even more money. So that's the value engineering we did. There's nothing else we can do. We look at the brick and stuff like that. We're trying to get this, as close to matching as possible, kind of thing. So again, we actually took out some pieces to figure what's underneath, to figure out, if we put a flagstone, is this problem going to continue? Because with flagstone, water gets in, right? So because the joint and because the material is still a porous material, so water gets in, it pops the bluestone. So we consider all that stuff. That's why we thought concrete may be a better finish for it, because it's more continuous slab instead of individual slab, and then the joint becomes a problem of spalling out and things like that. Or we can find a way to drain it under the flagstone. But then once you drain it, it will get potential get into the exterior veneer of the vertical wall. So that's another challenge of flashing the wall, kind of thing. So we look at how you value engineering the project down, and we did that. And then in terms of pricing, I mean, we bid this out. This is the 4th time. We're not getting any cheaper. So I know before I come to this meeting, my conversation with Neil, Neil from my office, it's like, this is a lot of money. So, it is a challenging thing to balance what's the right thing to do, kind of thing. We're fully aware of it. That's why we went through this evaluation and decided that, to the extent we can replicate the historic value of the structure and the brick veneer from a visibility point of view. The slab that you stand on is not as critical, so that's why I went to concrete instead of a Blackstone. So we are trying to find value engineering savings by doing that. It's not perfect, it's not restoration, but at the same time, it gets halfway there or whatever distance we got, to save a few bucks. So we try to do that.
Well, it's also important to remember, and you mentioned this in the beginning, Alan, is that, the ADA requirements, which are required by law, and we kind of have no choice around that, is a significant chunk here. And so that's something that we have to accept.
To tell you the truth, I actually resisted this in the beginning. One of the reason is that, the problem is that, how the console is set up, the two entrances coming in, the ramp come down, and in case of a fire, they say people with disability, or not even disability, with elderlies that may not be handicapped, but maybe in the back of the, when emergency, they gotta get out, they gotta walk back towards the front of the stage area to get out. I think that's a little bit of a concern in case there's this is a fully sprinkled building, right? So the odds isn't there, but at the same time is that, these are, what if kind of questions, right? In case of evacuation, disabled person or people with, even with elderly and stuff, they probably would not walk towards inside the building, which is by the stage. They probably walk out from the backside. But then once you walk out the patio or the terrace, there's no handicap access. My position always been is that, well, you're outside the building, the firefighter can come there and help them on the stair. But ADA is a little more restricted than that. Providing a secondary means to help people exit the place is not ideal. So I resisted to putting a handicap ramp in there because how often do we use this place? Why are they putting a handicap ramp? But in case of emergency, when people do go out to the backside, they can't get out by themselves. They have to be assisted. In today's world, that's not acceptable kind of thing. So we are thinking about whether we really have to do the handicap ramp, but I challenge it, but I'm not. But at the end, I didn't fight it. You know what I'm saying? So we did have many of these discussions.
Can you put the map or the drawing up so that we can talk about it a little bit?
I don't know.
That was actually my next question was really that I'm looking at the pictures and the photos and thinking, we could possibly just cut that whole thing in half. Why do we have to go out that distance from the building? You could be maybe as wide as the stairs, and just keep it a narrower, almost like another walkway, just another long exit from the building itself. It would solve the issue of what you do with the doors. You could even make one of those stairways a ramp, perhaps. One going out toward I forget what, not East Avenue, but the other direction. But maybe just some imagination in there we could change the design of it, maintain the historical the historic nature of the building, but cut the thing in half. Why do we need a big patio that nobody's going to use?
I'm sorry, Jim. There's a few events that happen on that terrace. One is the holiday event that it's highly attended and it's packed with people. And I believe there might be another event that happens in that area, possibly around the holidays as well, but it's packed with people. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. I know there are people who speak from the terrace and, so it is used in that regard. It's just maybe not a lot, maybe it's not used on a monthly basis, but it is used for those purposes.
But you'd still have a terrace there. You would still have albeit a very smaller, you don't need, if you're going to talk to people, maybe we could have a garden or a garden in front of it as opposed to all big brick facility that nobody uses. I'm just saying, from an architectural standpoint, there's probably a lot of other things you can do other than have a big flat patio out there that's raised 5 feet off the ground. and, covered with bluestone right now, but
The proposed improvement is ripping out all the brick veneer
yeah,
from the foundation wall and the knee wall that's 4 feet high. So that doesn't change what's behind it. So all we do is veneer improvement. That's all we're doing. That's how much it costs just to do veneer around the whole thing. So if you're gonna remove it, you got to build a new a wall back up from foundation all the way up. Actually, that would even cost more money, and you still have to put the brick back in. So in fact, cutting in half would probably cost us more money because we got to build a full wall from foundation. We got to excavate and build all the way up again. So here, all we do is replacing the veneer.
so
So
it sounds like what you're saying is that if we either tear it all down or we fix it, and there's no other repurposing of it or reconstructing or redesigning it and doing it differently, because that's going to cost us more money.
I don't want
I
to
wish-
sound negative. That's all. Yeah, I just want to yeah.
Yeah, I wish life would be a lot easier if you had three alternatives: that tear this down, um, or leave it in place, or redesign it, and it's going to cost A, B, C, D. And we can make a clear choice which one we want.
So just tearing it out was never one of the options we looked at. So
Okay,
because
fine. So
we
we can eliminate that one right off the bat. The next alternative would be redesign it or take a look at the reasons why we use it, and say, okay, we use it for this and we use it for this thing with 3 times a year or 4 times a year, and this is what we need, and we redesign it to fit that need, and then we cost that out and say, okay, this is what it's going to cost. Or then final is that we just rebuild it or refurbish it so that it's exactly the way it is today.
Yeah,
I
we
don't have a choice.
Yeah, we are reskinning it. That's all we're doing, right? I mean, it sounds like simple, but yet it's cost so much money. But in today's
Yeah, so if we were to spend that much money, maybe we repurpose it or redesign it and maintain the historical, architecture, and it serves our purposes better in the future.
changing the shape, size of it, would cost us more money because again, we're only reskinning it, right? So we're not doing foundations. We're not excavating all the way down to create a foundation wall coming up. If let's say we reduce the width by 50%, we got to build new walls all the way around, not all the way around, but the section that we're cutting back, we got to build a whole new wall, which we call excavating from footings, the foundation wall, all the way 5 feet. That's a cost that is not in the project right now. So it will cost more money in that sense.
As well as paying someone to design it.
Yeah. So
Is-
changing it would be significantly more money,
Right.
and we'd have to, send this back and, be a whole thing 6 months from now.
Right.
In the meantime, we will have, some events coming up, that we want it to be safe and we want it to, look decent. And I don't know.
I've got to
mean,
smile a
it
little bit,
sounds to
Barbara,
me-
because I just got to smile because in the beginning we were talking that it's hardly ever used, and now every time you say something, it's we use it for this, that, and the other.
No, but I'm telling you, the events that we use it for are really important to the community.
I don't know of any events. That's all. That's why I'm
It's
even
not used
raising
a lot.
this.
It's not, but the
Okay.
events we use for are important for the community. And also, I think,
Okay.
like I said before, I think, it's due its historic value and historic preservation. It's an important building. So yeah,
Yeah, I'm not saying that we should tear it down. Believe me, I'm just saying, is
Okay.
there any other alternatives, and is it going to cost just as much to tear it down to fix it up? Well, yeah, maybe yes or no. And redesigning it, well, I don't know. It could be more expensive, it could be less expensive. I don't know. That's my, I'm in a quandary here. In a
I guess
quandary.
what I'm hearing from Alan and Joanne, it'd be much more expensive to tear it down and redesign it. Am I correct,
Yes.
Alan?
Yes, I mean, again, if you want to build something back up, I mean, the foundation wall, foundation is all there now, all we skinning it. So just imagine a house, right? You just want to put new exterior facade in there kind of thing, but you're not tearing the building down. But if you want to move it back a foot, you got to tear the building down, create a new foundation, and rebuild that facade back up. So that would be much more expensive than just replacing the clapboard that you have around the house. You know, you can re-insulate the wall and put what you call it, put plywood up and stuff like that, and we do the front of it. But you want to move it back 10 feet now, you got to rip out the existing, and then you got to build new foundation, build new walls in order to get it done. So changing the configuration of it is going to cost us some money. The least expensive way to do is we skinning it in a way. That's what we're doing. We're ripping out the bricks that are deteriorating and falling out kind of thing. And because we couldn't repoint it either, it's beyond that point of just repointing. So because water gets in for all these years, so it's really taking all the brick veneer off. We building the brick because there is a foundation wall behind it because it's a retaining wall because it's 5 feet above grade. So we build that wall. If we have to rebuild the foundation wall, that's a lot of cost because you got to excavate down 4 feet, and you got to be wider than that. You got to put a footing in, and then the foundation wall goes up, and you know that's substantial compared to just reskinning it. Still, you still got to reskin it because now you got to put brick back in, so that cost is there still.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Alan, can I ask a question? The scope of this project, so it includes the stairs on either side, right?
Right.
And the ramp. Does it
Right.
include other stairs,
Yeah, there's other stairs.
other doors? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of stairs. Is that right?
I think at least 4. And the ramp.
Okay. My other concern, just to think about, is that once you're down there, I mean, you're still pretty close to the building. Is there any talk ever about actually pulling the sidewalk out to the sidewalk? Like,
There's a requirement. We are actually looking to extend the sidewalk so that a person can get
the side,
out. Because right now the sidewalk actually ends in the middle of the lawn. We are looking to extend. That came up as part of the ADA review probably like 3-4 years ago. We haven't got there yet. It's a minor improvement, but it is being discussed right now. In fact, it's been talked about many times.
but it's not part of this project.
Not part of this project.
So you're still gonna end whatever we build in the middle of the lawn.
Yeah, this is different type of contractor, right? This is a mason. The other one is really a paving contractor, a sidewalk, concrete contractors who do sidewalk. So I believe I'm 95% sure that it's not in here, and we are looking with different money to actually extend that walkway. The question I think we came up with one. I'm not sure the system is concrete or asphalt. I think it's concrete, so we probably extend it with concrete to extend it all the way to the curb.
And we could do that kind of at the same time. It would be a shame to spend this much money and then have people not really be able to access it as well.
I want to say, I think there's 2 sidewalk we need to do. You see on the drawing. I'm not sure you can see it. Wait, where the ramp is on the left-hand side of it. How we zigzag around. We need to build a sidewalk there. I think that sidewalk may be inside this project. But coming up, you know where the generator is on the right-hand side? That sidewalk come and stop halfway. That one, we got to extend that one as well because people coming, in case of emergencies, people coming to the concert hall will use that exit by the generator. When they come out, the sidewalk stop. That's the one we need to extend. So there may be 2 separate sidewalk that we have to do. I'm pretty sure we actually look at the grading from this ramp on the handicap ramp coming out on this patio, how that because there's a grade change, there's a little hump on the mound over there. So we're looking at how the drainage is going to work and how that walkway is going. So by looking at it, I have a feeling that may be in here. I'm not positive, and that's on concrete. But the other one that came up many years ago that we need to do, and that hasn't been done yet. So there will be that probably be a separate little project to pave. But that costs maybe 10 grand, 15 grand kind of thing. So it may be under a sidewalk contract for the city to do separately.
I think the idea would be to really do it at the same time, so it's really money well spent
Sure.
rather. I don't know.
That's a great question, Ms. Dunn. Thanks for asking that. I've always wondered why, it appears to be the main entrance to the auditorium, right? And there's, no sidewalk to get to it. It also makes me wonder that, once to hear that this has been talked about and it will happen, at some point, we hope, that might offer another, more use for that door. People, who want to take Wheels to You to come see a concert or an event in the auditorium, might be able to be dropped off and walk in that back door and give it more use, which would be great.
Also mean you wouldn't have to.
Well, email everybody on the committee tomorrow. Let me just get confirmation what the status of the two sidewalk that we need to install is, what the strategy is. We do have a plan on how that's going to be done. To the extent that yes, it's kind of interesting. Sometimes like a building contractor, I know this is concrete, so I think the mason would be able to do it too, but we may just want to get a price because we have unit prices from DPW sidewalk contractors, so we can add it to that. So the price will be very competitive because they bid it on a quantity of a sidewalk replacement. So let me look at that. Let me email the committee tomorrow just to follow up on this question about the sidewalk. So I don't want to inform you.
Okay, thank you.
It's a priority, I think, for me. Just part of the ADA piece of it too, because
Absolutely.
chair, you're getting out to nowhere, and
Mhm.
Yeah.
actually, if you're attending it, you're right, it would be much easier to get dropped off right there than to have to go through City Hall. And the way to get to a concert, it'd be much easier to go up it once this is done.
Absolutely. I remember the first time I went into that auditorium was many, many years ago, but I just thought, whoa, this is so weird. Why am I going in this door all the way through City Hall as opposed to coming in those beautiful doors in the front? But I, of course, learned why. Anyway, okay. Any more comments or questions? All right. Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. That passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Freyer. Okay, and then moving on to item 2, review bids for emergency generator maintenance services for various buildings and refer a recommendation to the Common Council for action. Authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to Northeast Generator Company for emergency generator preventative maintenance services for 3 years at City Hall, Health Department, Fire Headquarters, Police Headquarters, Belden Main Library, and Public Works Center Garage for a total not to exceed $21,324. Funding is available in various building operating accounts. Will someone move that, please? Mr. Freyer, thank you. Alan?
Very quickly, the reason why this is coming, it's not a lot of money, but at the same time, this is coming to Common Council because it's a multi-year contract. It's for, I think it's 6 or 7 buildings. I forgot what it was. So for 3 years, total amount is the 21,000. The other numbers is 15,000 because Tri-State was used to be our generator, but they don't respond well. It's a very small company. And we're trying to call them for service and stuff. They don't respond. And also we have rejected them. We actually canceled the contract previously. So when this went out again, they bid on it. But at the same time, that's why we don't want to accept them as a poor performance. And again, this is for multiple building and it's for total 3 years. So it's about what, $7,000 a year. Right. Because that's 21,000, right? So what it is. Yeah. It's all for the operating budget. The reason there's no account is because it's those account hasn't been established. So it's subject to account availability of funds. So it's pretty straightforward in that perspective. So you don't see account number, that's the reason.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? All righty, seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. All righty, that passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Anything else?
Under discussion, if the committee can indulge me for, I don't want to get into a long discussion. I don't want to hold you guys up any longer than you have to. Not you guys, I'm sorry, my apologies. The committee, they put no more than they need to. I want to just talk to everybody about something that's on my mind. I think this come up many times before. Again, I don't want to spend more than 10 minutes. So if 10 minutes, we just need to put, it's like council meeting, 3 minutes, that's it. So 10 minutes, that's it, right? I want to talk about leases, city lease. I know this came up on many different occasions, a previous committee discussion. All our leases, we don't have a lot of buildings that we lease out. We have probably like Ben Franklin Center, Ely, and Roosevelt, and maybe a couple of other places like, whatever. It's very minimum kind of thing. But they are a little bit of a challenge in terms of like, I know Greg many times talk about why don't we standardize these things? They are not generally speaking very easy to standardize. For instance, it's like senior center. I mean, we've been trying to get away these $1 a year lease, right? But at the same time, there's reasons behind each one of these. Like senior centers, we provide them with operating financial assistance. So we charge them rent, we just basically give them money and take it back the other hand kind of thing. It's kind of a little weird a little bit. Also, they're seniors and stuff like that. And also when most of these facilities rent to nonprofit groups, and it's very hard to talk about this publicly. It's like, it's kind of like half full, half empty. It's like, we don't want to favor one nonprofit than another one, but at the same time is that certain nonprofit provides service to a need that's important to us more than another one. So we don't want to like debate these things too much publicly in a sense, because it's like, we want to be fair, we want to be, but at the same time, and also some leases when an organization would provide capital costs for improvement, so they get $1 a year lease, but then let's say they put in $200,000, we would depreciate it in 10 years. So we give them $1 a year lease. So in the public eye, a lot of times when we talk about these things, people say, why did the city give $1 a year lease? Each one is very different. So I just want to keep everybody in mind, realize that, we're not purposely trying to give $1 a year, but then each one has its own kind of conditions and terms and conditions that we consider during different councils and stuff like that. But the main piece I want to talk about is that, what we collect for rent. I think generally speaking, we don't make any money on these leases. I think there's basically 3 category plus kind of thing. The first category is that we try to get the common charges or utility costs paid for. Typically, that cost, each building is a little different in value because each building maintenance, operating wise, is a little more expensive than other one kind of thing. Generally speaking, it's about $2.50 to $3 a square foot net square footage. It's not gross. So when someone leases the whole building, then you calculate it by gross. But when you're leasing a portion of the building, a 4 classroom, we usually measure the square footage by net square footage, excluding hallways and bathroom and things like that, right? So there's a whole different calculation to it. But generally speaking, we are in the $2.50 to $3 range to cover utility costs, plus like stuff like fire alarm inspections, elevator certifications, and on and emergency security alarm if we have one in that building. Things like that. So that's about $2.50 to $3 a square foot. Then the next level of cost, it's a building management cost, which is like, building management, it's actually a separate contract with Guardian Services, who Neil Rennie works for. They've been with the city a number of years, but at the same time is that there's a cost of managing this building, and also as well as there's a whole building engineering division that go out and repair and maintain mechanical equipment and replacing light fixtures and other things. So that cost is somewhere around $2 a square foot net. So if we talk to one group, if we want to make sure they cover all the expenses, operating utility expenses, that would be like $2.50 to $3. But you want them to cover, including the building management service, that's probably like $5 in today's range, right? So we look at something similar. Recently, we approved a contract for Family Children Agency. Their number was before was $2.50. So the way I developed the extension for 5 years, I'm trying to get them to at least $4. I'm trying to break it in slowly because these are nonprofit group. You always jump from $2.50 a square foot to $4 a square foot. It is a financial impact on them. So I'm trying to kind of build in 25 cents a year to get 5-year gap to $4, four and a quarter, something like that. So we're getting there, right? But I think that if the committee or the city wants to cover our utility costs plus our operating management costs, that should be somewhere between $4 to $5 a square foot, right? Then the next one that we never charge people for is capital debt. So when we replace a roof or we replace a mechanical system, that could be $500,000 or whatever. So we go out and borrow money on capital budget, but we don't. I mean, in a way, we want to be truly not subsidizing a facility kind of thing, then we should include that cost in. But that number is not easily defined because again, we could replace a roof this year for $500,000, but then it won't have anything to do for the next 5-10 years. But then, another time we've been spending $200,000 for something else and stuff. So it's not really like a regular expense that we can track. It's very building specific. So that's a capital cost. So that there's utility costs, there's management costs, and there's capital debt service costs, right? And finally, I mean, we don't have this issue, this situation, but I mean, we ran into a private sector, potentially we can make a profit on it. So that hasn't come up because we usually don't rent it to profit agencies or a company. So the reason I'm bringing this up now tonight is just that I think there's a number of leases coming up. Some have expired for a year or more kind of thing. I want to really try to capture all these things and reorganizing. So I think these issues will come up in the next few months. And I just want to start and talk about it so people understand what the differences are and the challenges we have every time we talk about this. I know that one time we talked about, it took us 3 committee meetings to talk about a rental fee. And we never could make a decision. So it is very difficult conversation to have sometimes because what do we charge people? It's there's many reasons that they approach council members and the mayor about geez, we really provide service whether it's children or seniors or the disadvantaged community, then we should help them out a little bit kind of thing. But what does that mean? So I just want to start introducing these issues or concept to everybody. So when these leases come up, we need to be able to be in a position to figure out what to do. And because I'm out there negotiating these things, so in a way, I'm trying to get a sense of how the committee feels so that I don't misrepresent the city when I talk to them. And something negotiating get a little tough because what happened, it's not like angry kind of tough. It's just that, instead of talking about it, your phone may be ringing because this group is that you folks may be associated with, we're calling you right away. Why is Alan asking for this money and stuff like that? So I think I just want to introduce this issue to you so that you're aware of it.
Ms. Khan, go ahead.
Well, I want to start out by saying I love that you're talking about this now because I think it's amazing and it makes me really happy that you're doing that. I know that we also lease out the city leases out buildings, we're still leasing out the Welcome Center on Park Street?
No, that's actually, Park Street is not our building.
I know.
Yeah. Oh,
So
we are leasing. That's
it's-
more than that. I have nothing to do with it.
But so, as a community member, I was always like, why are we leasing out a building when like we own Ben Franklin? You could have a Welcome Center there, or we own Briggs up the street from me that is basically, a little underutilized. And I know that's Board of Ed separate, but sitting down holistically and looking at what we own, where, and maybe things could be shifted to different areas that we could utilize better within the city. And so that we wouldn't have to rent, space and I don't know if there's other places that we're renting. I think it'd be a great little workshop or something that if you could help out, I think it would be a really good exercise that, long range planning for us.
And since you mentioned, I'm sorry if I'm cutting you in. So when you're mentioning it, the breaks, right? I mean, Boiler doesn't really use except the 4 classroom in the back. There's also a central kitchen. But how they operate the central kitchen, I'm not sure what the long-term strategy is. The rest of the building is just for storage. At some
They
point,
are using that building now. They're using Briggs now. They have moved the programming that was in the back into the building itself.
Yeah, so we really should look at, I mean, I like Heather said, it's like, boy, that's kind of thing, but it is interesting because that building needs a lot of work. Is it worth to kind of maintain it this way? The other thing we should also talk about is that Columbus School, with the start and completion of Columbus School, as early as within about a year from now, what are we going to do with that building too? I mean, there's something that we should talk about because the problem is once you have a building and you don't use it, it just kind of dies in a way. I mean, that's not the proper word, but you can see when we don't use a building, it just falls. It's just like kind of goes on you, you know. I think there needs to be a strategy of looking at it. What are we going to use that building for? And I guess, you know, I mean, you know, a lot of it has to do with public education in terms of their education strategy kind of thing. But that needs to be looked at too because it's anyway. So yeah.
Could save all that money that we're spending renting Park Street for the Welcome Center by putting the Welcome Center in Columbus, right? If it was a viable situation.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding though is that's Board of Ed and that really has nothing to do with the city side, Park Street anyway.
Tax dollars that we're spending though, I mean, given budget, when we talk about, we spend a lot of money on that. It's cost us a ton of money for every person.
Yeah. At the time when the Board of Ed decided to rent that place, there was a lot of conversation at the council level. So I think Barbara and Greg can, you know, discuss that privately. So what the issues were back then, you know. But I think, yeah, holistically, I think we should kind of look at this as a group. Kind of, it helps me a lot because, you know, I'm out there doing this stuff, and at the same time, it's important that because when I bring some just not the same, but you know, even like we talk about the patio. I mean, I'm out there figure out how to do this, and you know, so for something like this with real estate and stuff, it's so kind of challenging. It's like, you know, I try to do something. It's important that I represent the city properly and negotiate it, and I need the committee to buy in by the time I bring it here. So it's not like I bring, you know, negotiate something, I come to a committee, and then like, well, that's not what we want to do. It's kind of, for staff-wise, it's a little bit embarrassing. It's just I don't have credibility when I go out to talk to somebody at that point. So it is important that I have a you know, we can sit down and go over what the strategy, what the concepts are before I go out and try to negotiate on behalf of the city.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. I mean, I think it's important that we're sensitive to the nonprofits, you know, because they're servicing, you know, people in need or, you know, whatever it may be. But we do have to think about, you know, the bottom line for the city, you know, covering the utilities and repairs of buildings and everything. So finding the right balance, I'm sure, is very tricky. Mr. Burnett.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just three quick points on this. I think one, it'd be helpful to understand what the inventory is as it relates to what buildings that we are actually leasing, because I don't think anyone on this committee, or I'll speak for myself, that, you know, I fully understand what properties we're actually leasing. I know of a few, but not all of them. So that would be one thing, to understand what the inventory is. And then two, as you stated, Alan, you know, each one of those leases has some level of uniqueness in terms of why are we even leasing it to that entity? And it's important to take that into account. You know, why do we even begin to engage in a lease arrangement with that organization and take that uniqueness into account? And then thirdly, what I think this committee could do that might be helpful in your discussions is maybe put together some type of guiding principles as it relates to any leased property, so that at least there's a foundation that we start from and say, okay, if you're leasing a city-owned property, at a bare minimum, these are the things that we need to address with that organization. what the square footage costs will be, to cover the maintenance of the building, et cetera. So some type of guiding principles that we all agree with, that regardless of the lease, this is the foundation in which the negotiation starts. And then from there, we could gravitate towards some level of uniqueness based upon the building, based upon the organization, et cetera. So just 3 quick points that I think might be helpful in us moving forward with this leasing situation.
Thank
Just being a wise guy, the reason why you don't know is because job security for me,
I know that. I didn't want to, Alan, I didn't want to say that publicly, but you did, so.
Have enough.
Mr. Freyer.
Yeah, I agree with Greg. I think it's a real, all 3 points have a lot of merit. I think what we're really getting down to is that what is we're hiding the cost of the services that we're giving to a lot of these organizations through these lease arrangements, because if we're having to put a roof on a building for somebody, if we have to do other services, if there is maintenance that has to be done that's of an extraordinary nature, that's all expenses that organization would have to incur on their own. So essentially what we're doing is we're subsidizing those organizations. And maybe there are some organizations that are making pretty good money. Now, take a look at the golf course, for example. The golf course was kind of an albatross around the city's neck for a while, until they finally got their act together, and now they're showing a surplus. We still have the big white elephant, which is the restaurant there, that should have been, probably was a big mistake to put it in there in the first place, to the extent that it was. But they're paying for themselves for all intents and purposes, and making an effort to pay off all of the other debts that they've incurred on, or the city has incurred on behalf of them. So I think we're really masking what the cost that's the social cost that the city is incurring through the maintenance of all of these buildings. So I think it makes a lot of sense to do that inventory, find out what we have, find out what our costs are, and find out what those organizations can pay. And if they can't pay, I'm not saying throw them out, but we ought to acknowledge the fact that that's a subsidy that the city's giving to those particular organizations. And it's an expense like every other expense that we have, that we vote on. We're not voting on any of those. We're voting on a lease that Alan is trying to negotiate with in all good faith, but understanding that these people can't really afford it, but we're giving it to them anyway. So I think that all 3 points that Greg brings up have a lot of merit, and I think that we should, with all due haste, try to get a handle on what those costs are, what the inventory is, what our costs are. I don't know if that's possible, Alan, if you can accumulate all the costs. What does it cost for us to own all those buildings?
We actually have, because our operating budget is based on a building specific, we can pull those numbers. So when we talk about lease, when I want to try to find what the common charges are, Neil in my office could be able to pull that out, and we figure it out, kind of thing. I mean, it's not, it's pretty good, but it's not like it's nothing perfect kind of thing. But at the same time, we are in pretty good position to come up with a number for each building. They are different, but at the same time, they're not that much different.
Yeah, but we also have to have a capital needs assessment and a program to see what the maintenance is going out. I mean, that's part of a lease arrangement that we would have if it was a commercial operation. We should be looking at it just like any other commercial operation, but then say, okay, this organization, the ABC organization, can't afford it, but we all agree that we should be lending them, or we should be subsidizing that organization for the good of the city, and then vote on it.
Well,
Otherwise, get the lease.
Cost is to us too, because I know that we're voting on, I think repaving or doing the parking lot for Ben Franklin, for example. That's
Yeah.
a the city, and at some point, if the cost is too much, maybe you sell the building, but you can't make decisions unless you have all the information. So having a really good inventory and maybe, a working group to really look at what the city's priorities are. And make some.
And along the
decisions.
same, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's it.
Along the same lines, I think we ought to include the Board of Ed. I mean, that's still city money that we're spending money on, right? I mean, as far as I remember, we have a budget and capital budget had some Board of Ed stuff in there, as far as I know.
Did.
Yep.
I said 10 minutes. I think it's a little more than 10 minutes, you know?
And now we've given you about 2 weeks worth of work.
No, but it's all
I'll
good.
teach you to
I
open
think,
your mouth, Alan.
yeah, it's a complicated and sensitive issue. And every time we come up, it's like Head Start program, right? And then how much you charge and the affordability. And also, for Head Start program with the group that they're finding that level of I wouldn't call them teachers, but they are, care providers, semi teacher care provider for the preschool kids kind of thing at the Head Start level kind of thing. Those people it's hard to charge them. I mean, that's one place that is very hard to say, we're going to charge them $5 a square foot because they have to be able to find teachers and stuff, so it's very complex, right?
No, but what we have to do is we have to find out what does that building cost, okay? And that's the lease that's the dollars per a dollar lease that we're gonna have per square foot, whatever metric you want to use. And then we say, okay, Head Start program, it's gonna cost you $50,000 a month. I'm just picking numbers out.
Yeah.
But they say, hey, we can't afford $50,000 a month or $50 a month. Okay, fine. Then we'll charge you whatever you can afford. And then the other part becomes the subsidy that we have to approve at the city level. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all money coming out of the city. We're going to have to spend it one way or the other. So why don't we understand what we're spending the money on?
Yeah, when I
What
mentioned
are
different
you
organization, I'm not sure to pick on them anyway. I just wanted to
No. That was an example.
2 weeks ago, the question came up a senior center because we have a $1 lease, so they don't pay for utility or anything at all. So in a way, that is a subsidy. So I believe we go for operating budget to give them maybe 400,000 or something like that. I don't know. I don't get involved in that. But then the question is like, do we provide any more? We do actually, because they generally speaking, utility free and rent free kind of thing. I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying that, that question came up and we actually did a calculation and we came up some number kind of thing. So we could come up for each building, identify what those numbers are kind of thing, so that there's a reference point as Greg was mentioning before. And then at some point, the council, it's put a little more, like a better word, pressure on the council to look at these, and then in certain, I guess you need the objectivity first, and then you can do the subjectivity afterwards, I guess, right? So to look at each case kind of thing. So again, I just want to start this conversation and just want everyone to be aware that there's a number of leases coming up. In fact, be very transparent about this. The way the city, we do not have a lot of building, we do not have a lot of leases. Okay, these are not multi-million-dollar issues that we do, but they do add up as a community service, supporting a nonprofit in town kind of thing. There is a cost to all of this. And at the same time, again, we're not like, losing millions of dollars kind of thing, but at the same time, there is a financial accountability responsibility as a city of Norwalk and staff and the council to look at these things and see what we're actually doing kind of thing. I just want to let you know that the way the city manages lease, we don't do it well. We don't manage these leases well at all. It's very diversified management and stuff. For about 6 months or more than 6 months, for about a year now, we are trying to internally trying to consolidate these issues and try to manage these leases much better. We haven't got there yet, but at the same time, I gotta meet with Tom Livingston again. It never is on everybody's top priority. So we bring it up once in a while, but I'm going to bring it up again. And it's a slow process, so don't expect miracle in 3 months kind of thing. It is a very complicated process. It involves legal department, IT department, controller's office, and different departments, how some of these leases money are collected, and how does it work, and how do we check whether the money came in or not, and all that stuff. So we are kind of evaluating all our process, and we don't have much process because these leases, traditionally, each department do their own. So there's not a consolidated, centralized process. So we are trying to figure out how we can do it. So it's a complicated thing, and although it's not like it's not, we don't have so much that we can hire somebody. So it's like it's really being piecemeal together kind of thing, and so we are trying to find solution to this the process.
Alan, the other thing that happens is I know that we just voted on, I think it was like $92,000 to have FCA run our senior programs or something. Do you guys remember? I don't know. But then they also lease, at a, almost to give away the
Ben Franklin?
space, Ben Franklin. So it would be nice to do a cost analysis of, not a judgment of what they do or its value or anything like that, but just like, the income and outflow with that agency. Because if we're spending, if lots of different places we're spending money, giving them money, and then we're also giving them a free space, that should all be part of the conversation. I'm not saying it's good or bad or anything like that. We just
Right,
need information.
Yeah.
I think Heather's gonna be our new intern.
All right. Sorry, everybody, I had to bring this up.
When you're
because
ready
I
to
want
retire from
hire
teaching,
without-
Heather, you know
to.
who needs you. I have a question, Alan. When you go through the lease renewal process, do you ask the because these are mostly nonprofits, and they do have grant funding, which may change year to year, right? So do you do an analysis? They're required, I'm assuming, to report what grants they received for the prior year or number of years?
Absolutely not. I mean, all these years, I mean, I've been here 42 years. I mean, when I go in, it's like, what they do besides the general, we do this, we're senior center, we provide service to the senior. We don't get into the company's financial situation. Only one we get in a little bit is actually it's the childcare centers services from a little bit of Ben Franklin. They use the ground floor, and Nathaniel Ely, because they get state funding, and because that go through the city already, and because those program of financial is very struggle to find balance, and they don't get private funding, so it's not like something they go out and get funding for. So it's all dependent on the state, so we know what those numbers are. But other than that, other organizations, we don't. That's not a criteria for me to decide on the rental value kind of thing. It's a little more private kind of thing than there's something we would consider, because it's interesting, right? The more we ask, the more difficult it is for us to decide, because it's like, at some point we just had to sit down and close the door and make a decision kind of thing, because you can look at each organization, and they are definitely good things they're doing, but then how do you judge whether it's providing service for children versus senior versus the disadvantaged folks, whatever? It's a very difficult kind of challenge, and you can't debate that publicly. It just doesn't, it's not fair. It's very complicated. So at some point you just get all the information, just have to, as the council, you just have to sit back and make those decisions. It's you can't, once you just get into, well, last year you got a grant of $500,000, but this one you only get 50 million. You just get more parameter to evaluate. It's just get more complex, So anyway, I'm just blabbing off again.
Okay, well, thanks for bringing it up. Certainly, a lot for us to talk about and think about upcoming, and I think getting an inventory and the guiding.
I'll work on it
idea.
tonight.
Really
I'll work on it tonight and see what we get by tomorrow. But I do owe you something by tomorrow about those. And one lastly,
We can give you a little more time than that.
lastly, I'm going to a vacation in June. So I'm going to look, make sure to see anybody have any time sensitive item. If there is, Joanne's going to be the staff person. So if not, then we may cancel June, but the July meeting is on July 3rd. So chances are we will have items for that. So we may want to schedule, reschedule July 3rd to another day. So I assume everybody not particularly want to do this on a July 3rd day, day before July 4th. So I'm probably looking for a possible day to look. I will look at all the other council meetings and stuff, the council committee meetings, see potential set of different meeting for July. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna recommend, Alan, for that special meeting, for the July meeting, we look at the last week of June, because the council meeting will be on the 9th, the following Tuesday, so we want to make sure that we cover anything anything time sensitive, especially, so that it's ready for the 9th.
Very good.
Okay.
Right.
All right, great. Motion to adjourn? Okay, Mr. Burnett, that's it. All right, thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Bye.